So what are the drivers, what are the enablers that are causing this to be a time within the construction industry for major changes? And that's sort of, I think, the message of this whole event. But I will talk a little about the Green Construction Board later, but the title of my session in the programme, so I thought I'd be a bit of a nerd and actually stick to the question. So the exam question in the programme is this one. Is green construction about to come of age, driven by new technologies, green finance and the pressures of global warming and competition for resources? So that was the title I was given, and I ummed and ahed and thought, well, I could do loads on this or loads on that or loads on the other. But in practice, the simple answer is, well, yes, it has come of age. And for many of us, we would say it came of age a long time ago. And for those who don't yet agree with that, well, then its time has come, and it must come because we have no alternatives. So that's the simple answer to the exam question. And of course, this is what we're all trying to provide, is a stable planetary ecosystem that we continue to have good lives. So that's the basic sort of exam question that I wanted to unpick a little more in my 10 minutes. So first of all, green construction, what do we mean? Well, it's a huge, huge, broad topic. Lots and lots of different facets, lots of different people with different views. I call them different lenses on the topic. And if we look around us at this event, there's huge numbers of different people doing different things with different passions, different priorities, but they're all contributing to this thing that we call green construction, but which is a sense of trying to do the right thing, whether we're talking about quality or efficiency or productivity or sustainability. We all have some sense of what that good might be, but that good depends on who you are. So that's the sort of nature of the huge debate going on, that this event is one of many, many events, and I could go to an event on sustainable construction every day of the week. But Peter, who is my boss, probably wouldn't like that. So, looking at the trend of eco-build since it started about 10 or 15 years ago, and it started in Earl's Court. And at that time, the focus was very much, I would say, on self-build. It was a sort of hotbed of activism, and it was self-build of people who wanted to pursue a lifestyle of self-reliance, of a simpler lifestyle. They wanted to return to nature, to do that sort of thing. And they were tending to build their own houses in local materials. Sometimes they were sort of growing their own hazel to produce for their own purposes. And it was a sort of Arcadian vision of what the future should look like. And sometimes Grand Designs will do a feature on that sort of thing. And it's a very, perfectly valid way to think about how you want to live. And a lot of green construction has been deemed as this alternative way of living, the cabin in the woods, that type of thing. But I would argue that there's 8 billion of us almost now on the planet, and we all like to enjoy the benefits and the conveniences of modern life, be it warmth, shelter, white goods, travel, or whatever. And therefore, that simpler way of approaching things is not actually a viable option. Now, many would disagree. It's a philosophical point. But in my view, then it isn't going to address the major issues that are facing us from an environmental point of view. So let's just remind ourselves of the environmental pressures. You're all very familiar with them. Global warming, energy security, water in too much, too little in the wrong place, waste. The plastics issue is a big one, obviously, at the present time. Resource efficiency, social responsibility. So those are all the things that we're all very familiar with, and in fact, in my career, I've been talking about them for the last 40 years. So we've not been very successful at dealing with them. And so that's why now, whether you're dealing with UN agencies, companies, organizations, academics, individuals, everybody is trying to find the answers and the solutions to all these environmental pressures. And the question, therefore, I think, is how do we deliver on these aspirations of a good life without trashing the planet and the very life support systems that we humans depend on? And that is what the Sustainable Development Goals are all about. And those, as we know, companies are looking at what it means for them, so are governments, so are individuals. So that's a sort of modern template for living in a sustainable way. So my first part of my exam question then is the construction industry now being driven by the issues of environmental concerns? And I would argue, yes, they are. So the next part of that exam question of what's driving is green construction part of the new paradigm is the technologies, the new technologies. What have we got available? We're living in an extraordinary time. We have digital and the Internet of Things, and that's moving through our industry, not quite as fast as I think most people expected, but that is going to change massively how we build things, how we use things, what we do at end of life, and there are numerous events here looking into that topic. We've also got robotics and artificial intelligence, giving us precision manufacturing, off-site, everything else. That's another huge impact on our industry. And then there's advanced materials, all that sort of weird stuff that people are coming up with. The new age phase change materials that are allowing for better energy storage. And I'm off next week to a Royal Society event on something called new animate materials, whatever they might be. But that appears to be those things that do self-healing, self-maintenance, and those attributes. And then we have new products and processes, which the Active Building Centre in Swansea, with its new way of storing energy and releasing it over a year to create an energy positive house, is an amazing piece of innovation. So that means that we've got these concerns and pressures, and we've now got opportunities that innovation can bring, and these are immense, and they will help us tackle these problems. And the third part of my question that Peter gave me was green finance. We know what we need to do. We've now got technology to help us. Is there an economic case, or is there a finance that can actually be brought to the problem? And again, I guess I'm a sort of half full type of person, in as much as I think there is, again now, lots of new opportunities. In terms of research funding, we have the new industrial strategy, which is giving an extra £4 billion of research funding for innovation and development, not just for universities, but jointly for industry and universities. Within that, we have a construction sector deal, and within that, there is a Transforming Construction Challenge Fund, which you can hear about tomorrow morning, and that's £170 million of government funding, twinned with many millions more from industry. And that's particularly to look at moving the industry forward on digital construction, off-site construction, and also looking at how we can do whole life procurement, which will include social and environmental issues as well as cost. So there's lots of new financing there. Some of you may be aware of the Green Finance Task Force that reported last year. This is a copy of its report. It was chaired by Sir Roger Gifford. It's very much the investors in the city who are looking with green bonds, which are increasing enormously, to invest in a range of different types of products. And through government, they are about to create a green finance institute, which will be, as I understand it, a one-stop shop for industry to go to, and they will help identify potential sources of new finance. With green finance, you've either got those investment companies that are looking to de-risk against fossil fuels, or they're looking to fund new innovation, or obviously there's the green mortgage side of things, but there's also, it's becoming apparent, and Anglia Water is an example, they've been able to get cheaper finance in the markets because they're seen as a very green company. Then within that mix, I'm going to just mention the Green Construction Board, because if we've got environmental pressures, we've got technologies, we've got finance, we've got research, do we have a sort of policy commitment? Now, I could talk about the Clean Growth Strategy, the 25-year Environment Programme, the Climate Change Act, the Climate Change Committee report. Zillions of different policy initiatives. It's a complete sort of myriad of different ways of approaching energy efficiency, energy supply, etc. But within all that, I just wanted to mention in my last minute or so the Green Construction Board, which is the sustainability work stream of something called the Construction Leadership Council, which works with government to develop and deliver the construction sector deal. It's chaired by David Pinder, CEO of Baxi. CPA, in the form of myself, provides support to David in that role, and also I'm co-secretary with Bays for the board. We're working very specifically at present with government on the buildings mission, which is to halve energy usage in new buildings by 2030. So we're looking at what the good baseline is now, what the halving of that would be by 2030, what building typologies already achieve that now, and therefore does that give us an indication of what should go into building regulations as they move through from the revision of Part L this year through to 2030. In industry, we need certainty to invest, and so government chopping and changing or abandoning policies is not good for investment. We need certainty over the longer term, and we're trying to get back to that longer term trajectory with milestones along the way that can be not so abandoned by politicians on a whim. We're also continuing the work on low carbon, low cost in infrastructure that Anglia Water leads. We're just started a work stream with DEFRA on the zero avoidable waste in construction, which is mentioned in the resources and waste strategy that came out in December. That will be initially interpreting what zero avoidable waste in construction might mean. And then after that, which we'll do in the next 3 months, is to develop a route map for the industry of how to deliver. And finally, on green finance, we're meeting with the chair of the Green Finance Task Force, Sir Roger Gifford, at the end of the month to explore the opportunities to bring new financing to innovation in this sector. So, summary I won't bother with. But all these things are now in place, and so I think we have moved from that sort of eco-build in the early days of self-build, self-reliance, back to nature. And as far as I can tell, that's why eco-build is now called future build. So, thank you very much.